Am I the a-hole for telling my sister that she is as bad as our father? I, 28 female, have an older sister, 33 female. Our parents divorced when we were 4 and 9. Our mother got full custody because our father was not a good person. Then our father kidnapped us, and from 4 to 16 I lived with her and our father in cult. It was your run-off-the-mill Christian cult. Homeschooled, forced to dress modestly, any type of independence is seen as sinning, etc. But when I was 16, the cops finally arrested him and we were reunited with our mom. The first few years of freedom were wild. We finally got to grow as individuals, experiencing normal life and face our traumas in therapy. My sister became a tattooed, pink-haired career woman. I went to college, worked for a couple of years, met a good man, and decided that being a stay-at-home mom is what I really want. Looking at me, you would think that I am embodying what we were taught as kids in a cult, but that's not true. I just find myself in dressing in feminine clothes, taking care of my home, my husband, and my kid. I'm an equal in my relationship. I know how to assert myself, and I am as far from what I used to be as my sister is. My sister, on the other hand, doesn't think so. She takes every opportunity we meet to try and save me. She tries to convince me to leave my husband and my kid, pushes me to get a job, tries to force me to go clubbing with her, tried to force me to get makeovers, etc. I finally had enough yesterday. She made a dating profile for me on Tindr, and she has been chatting with a guy and had set a date already. I was furious. So we got into a screaming match that ended up with me telling her, "You are exactly like Dad. You are both trying to change me to fit the idea of what you think I should be." She was shocked, didn't say anything and just left. Her partner told me that she had an anxiety attack and is ramping up her therapy sessions. And now I am feeling like an a-hole. Not an a-hole. What you said is exactly right. She wouldn't listen to you before. Sometimes it takes a verbal slap in the face with the reality to get through to someone. Something that I've learned. The people who visibly rebel the most tend to be the ones who are the most similar to what they're rebelling from. The sister embodies this intensely, given her need for control. I agree, and for this reason, I'm actually gonna go with no a-holes here. OP, first, I'm really glad you're both out of that situation. Even though you and your sister went through it together, it sounds like the experience affected you pretty differently, which makes sense since you're two different people. Based on what her partner told you about your sister's reaction, it sounds like her identity as the rebellious one is actually pretty brittle, sort of like an emotional exoskeleton. What you said to her wouldn't have affected her so much if there hadn't been a kernel of truth to it. It was hard to hear, but the good news is that she was ready to hear it. I know that because she heard it. If she wasn't ready for it, she would have shut down instantly by lashing out at you, doubling down on the party girl thing, etc. She'd probably have quit therapy too, but that's not what she did. She heard what you said and recognized the truth of it, and she's dealing with it in an appropriate way. It would probably be good to let her know you love her and that you're there for her, but also to give her some space and follow her lead for a bit. I know this is upsetting, but it also sounds pretty healthy. I think you're both gonna be okay. The moment you start pretending to be someone else online, you become the a-hole. I hope he's married. If her husband or anyone who knew her saw that Tindr account, she'd be receiving the heat of it, not the sister. Sister is an equal victim of the cult, but Opie didn't steal her identity online. That tips it to not the a-hole for me. She needed to hear the truth, Opie. Ramping up her therapy sessions is the best thing you can do right now. All the women I know in harmful relationships have careers. She needs to learn that's not a way to measure freedom. Definitely not the a-hole. It sounds like you are happy and secure in being who you want to be. It's not your fault that she can't see or accept that. It almost feels like she's overcompensating for the lifestyle you had growing up, while you've found your middle ground. For her to create a Tindr profile for her happily married sister, and even chat up guys as you, is wrong on so many levels, and crosses so many lines that I can't even find a proper word for my disgust. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not treating my stepkids equally? I started dating Daniel 2.5 years ago and we got married last year. Daniel has 5 kids with his ex-wife. Ava 11, Jason 9, Isabella 6, Sophia 5, and Andrew 3. Daniel's ex never liked Ava. She blames Ava for leaving her trapped in a relationship with her dad. When they got divorced, she said she didn't want anything to do with Ava. She was 8 years old at the time. Ava's mom leaving but having a relationship with her siblings destroyed her. She had to go to the hospital 3 times over the first 4 months. She didn't sleep nor eat and would have panic attacks at school. The weeks Ava's siblings were with her mom were the hardest, because it was a constant reminder that her mom loved her siblings and not her. She would barely get out of bed those weeks. So around 2 years ago, I surprised her with a day trip to the beach. I bought her a cute swimsuit. We got ice cream. We went boogie boarding, went out to eat, and went shopping. It was the first time I'd seen her smile in weeks. I noticed it was helping Ava, so we started to go out more and more. When our siblings are here, it's something small like dinner before therapy. But when they're not here, we go camping. We go hiking. We try new restaurants. We go back to the beach, etc. And she loves it. I don't spend nearly as much one-on-one time with the other 4 kids for 2 reasons. These kids already have a mom that loves them and they don't need it as much. It is so much easier to do anything with 1 kid than 5. When I spend time with Ava, I stick her in my Honda and we go. When I have all 5 kids, we take a big passenger van and they fight over everything. It takes twice as long to go somewhere because I keep having to pull over and break up a fight. I do take all 5 kids out 1 to 2 times a week when they're with us, but it's not usually a big trip like what I go on with Ava. We'll go to the beach 20 minutes away instead of the one almost 2 hours away. We'll go on the walking trail by our house instead of a 4-mile hike. Sometimes we have picnics in the park. The big thing this summer is the amusement park. I'll take all of the kids with their dad or their nanny. We go on some rides together, then one of us will take the older 2 to go on all of the scary rides they want, while the other takes the younger 3 to the kiddie rides that the older 2 are way too big and mature to go near. Then we meet up at a water park. We've done this at least once a week this summer. Recently, my husband asked me to start taking the younger 4 on day trips, like the kind Ava and I go on, because they're starting to get jealous. I said I'll try to plan more fun activities, but my trips with Ava aren't suitable for all 5 kids. He said I should try to treat the kids equally and either not take Ava or take everybody. I said I will, when he takes all 5 kids camping or on a 4-mile hike by himself. He called me a bad stepmom, so I wanted to know if I was the a-hole. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Why doesn't their father do as much for his kids as you do? I think, given the circumstances, you're not doing anything wrong here, aside from the misleading title. Their dad works a lot and travels a lot for work. They are his responsibility and he should make time to be with them. He knows that his ex is emotionally harming Ava and you are supporting Ava, but he is demanding that you stop? He is not being a good father. He said I should try to treat the kids equally and either not take Ava or take everybody. The kids aren't equal, and the other 4 have a mother. Ava only has you. Crazily enough, you got yourself in the position where you're Ava's adoptive mom and stepmom to the others. In fact, even though it make the issues worse, I might suggest you look into legally adopting Ava. That way you have rights to her if you and your husband don't work out. Not the Holopi. Your husband is callous and ridiculous. You need to have a serious talk one-on-one with the others. See if you can nip this complaining in the bud, if he is telling the truth, and this isn't originating with the ex as another way to destroy Ava. Not the a-hole. That poor little girl. You may not have come up with a perfect solution for helping this child, and it may be unfair to her siblings, but you are putting a hurting child first. She's lucky to have you. I agree with not the a-hole, but if anything Opie does is unfair, it is caused by the unfair behavior of the biological mother. Trying to help and balancing out an unfair situation should not be called out as unfair. That would be excusing the root problem. Next story. Am I the a-hole for forcing my ex to cancel his business trip so he can watch our son after his girlfriend caused our nanny to quit? I had a nanny, Cora, who worked for both myself and my ex. While my ex paid her, he left most of the decisions about her employment and how she would care for our son to me. Cora asked me if it would be okay if she could bring her niece with her to work while she cares for my son, as her sister was in the hospital. Her niece and my son are both close in age, so I thought it would be nice for him to have a child to play with. And Cora has honestly been a lifesaver for the 2 years she's worked for us. Things were great, until Cora called me to tell me she was quitting. After my ex's girlfriend told her she couldn't bring her niece into his house. Even after Cora had told her I had said it was fine. I tried to convince Cora not to quit, but she said girlfriend spoke to her so rudely that she couldn't continue working for us. When I called my ex, he agreed his girlfriend was in the wrong, but thought this would just mean I would stay home to care for our son and he would take care of us financially again. I told him he needed to cancel his business trip next week because our son is supposed to be with him from Thursday to Sunday. He told me he couldn't just cancel as the trip was important, but I was annoyed, so I told him that was too bad. And it was a good thing he was his own boss then because he had to watch our son on his days and he couldn't do that from the US. Now he's upset with me, and his sister told me he broke up with his girlfriend in front of everybody because he was angry after our conversation. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. His childcare was lost due to his girlfriend, and he is responsible for finding backup childcare during his parenting time. Most parents have to schedule their business travel when their children aren't with them if they don't have alternative care. So, he needs to parent. He didn't have good boundaries with his girlfriend about her minding her manners with the important childcare provider he employs, and now he has consequences. I hope you can give the nanny a good reference for her next role. She did not deserve mistreatment. Hopefully you find an excellent new nanny shortly as well. I will also add that his girlfriend was probably of the eye candy category, and not someone he really cared about. Plus, how entitled can the guy be? The nanny quit, so my ex will quit her job and take care of the kid? My friend broke up with her narcissist ex, and every single inconvenience he experiences in his life is her problem to fix. He got a flat tire while transporting their infant and toddler. He called her to leave work to pick the kids up because he needed to go to the tire shop. Never mind normal custody handoff would be the following morning. He needed her to take over parenting because he couldn't plan a better time to get his tire fixed. That did not interfere with bedtime. Her work doesn't matter to him. Her family issues don't matter to him. Since their toddler was born, she lost 2 close family members in tragic, unexpected, and untimely circumstances. And both times, she was in crisis. He returned the kids early or skipped parenting time, when you know damn well she needed a minute to grieve without babies. These people feel like we're all here to make their lives easier, not that they have responsibility for contributing to their relationships. His girlfriend created a problem, and he expected you to give up your life because he doesn't want to be inconvenienced by his girlfriend's actions? My question is, why won't Cora come back if the girlfriend is no longer in the picture? Is there more to Cora leaving? Because when you have worked for a family for years in an intimate situation like Nanny does, you do have a breaking point. I'm going to guess the girlfriend was not treating Cora very well in general. That this was discussed with the father multiple times and he ignored the situation until it got to this point. Even if the girlfriend is gone, the father was disrespecting Cora by even putting her in this situation and she got fed up. Now for the last story, am I the a-hole for not giving my nephew his birthday gift? Just bear with me for a moment. My 29 female nephew Josh, 12 male, is quite spoiled. His parents, my brother and sister-in-law, show blatant favoritism towards him over his younger sister Lou, 9 female. As a result, sadly Josh has grown a little entitled. He also is quite mean to his younger sister, because his parents never believe her when she tells him what is done to her stuff. Now, I'm usually very strict, and when the kids are with me for a weekend, Josh is usually on his best behavior. Now, Josh's birthday was yesterday. Lou had a spelling bee last week, and she got first prize. Her parents brushed it off, but I was very happy for her because she spent hours learning each word, and I was very proud. So when I took the kids' day before Josh's birthday, so he could pick out a gift for his birthday, I got Lou a stuffed animal as a "you did great," while Josh picked this game that he's been wanting. The birthday party was yesterday, and when I went to their house, Lou had been grounded and was not allowed to attend, and the 2 friends she had invited were also sent back home. I thought it was extreme and asked what she had done. Turns out that Josh and her argued over the TV remote, and Josh went to her room and destroyed her stuffed animal that I gave her and told her she didn't deserve it. Lou screamed at him and my brother got angry with her temper tantrum and had her pick up the pieces of the stuffed animal and throw them in the trash, all the while she cried. She was then grounded. By the way, Josh's best friend was the one who spilled the beans to me and also told me that Josh goaded his parents into the punishment. I was furious and refused to give Josh his birthday present, telling him he didn't deserve it for being mean to his sister. I also told off my sister-in-law and brother that they're growing insanely cruel towards their young daughter. Now, my family is angry that I refused to give Josh his birthday gift. So, am I the a-hole? Now, for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Make sure you let her know that she has family that does love her and cares about her, because she is likely to need that support as she grows. Be ready to be put at a distance and ready to support her when you can. I'd start to document everything and ask about guardian rights for Lou. Poor thing being so neglected. I'd have a talk with brother and sister-in-law over this favoritism. And if it doesn't stop, then not only will they lose their relationship with their daughter, but also consider talking to a lawyer about gaining rights for her. She is being neglected and the punishment she's enduring. Keep an open channel with her so she knows she's got someone on her side. Not an a-hole. His parents are just the worst. They are, and they are making a monster. Well done for speaking up. Awful parents. Offer to adopt her if you can, as they are negligent. I hope you're around when she's a teenager and needs somewhere to live when they find an excuse to kick her out. I come from a family where sons are preferred over daughters. When my sister-in-law found out she was expecting a girl, she wanted to get rid of her, but she was too far along. I did offer to adopt her multiple times, but they have an image to maintain and they refused to let me. My parents were the same with me. Wait, what? How? Can I ask what culture you come from? And why boys are valued so highly that your sister-in-law considered aborting her daughter? I'm extremely curious because I've never heard anything like that before. I'm South Asian, but we live in the West. I don't want to share too much because sister-in-law is very active on this thread. Good. I hope she reads these comments. She's a terrible parent. Am I the a-hole for not helping my sister reconnect with her son, telling her that she abandoned him 20 years ago? When my 40 female sister of 43 was 23, she got pregnant with my son to a deadbeat that left her after he found out she was pregnant. The moment I held him in my arms, I fell in love with him. My sister, however, was indifferent to him. In the beginning, my parents said she was going through PPD. But as time went on, it became obvious that she wasn't, and she just didn't want to be a mother. She asked my parents to take him, but due to our dad's health at the time, they couldn't. She threatened to put him in the system, so I said I would take him. Once he was legally mine, my sister went low contact with us and moved to another country. Over the years when she did contact us, she never once asked how my son was doing. My son knows the truth about me not being his biological mother. I never hid it from him. My sister recently returned home. She showed up at my house and we had a good catch-up. And then she asked how my son was doing, and I told her he was doing good at school. She asked for his number, and I said I will have to ask him if it was okay, since he's particular with who has his personal number. She got upset with me and told me she was his mother. I said a mother that abandoned him 20 years ago. I kicked her out after she started screaming at me. I rang my son and told him what happened. He asked for a number, so I gave it. He told her to get lost, and that it wants nothing to do with her. She went to social media and posted how I stole her son and turned him against her. I got backlash from my family, but I don't care what they have to say about me. I do care how my son is getting heat from them as well, and making me think I shouldn't have said that to her. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, and you are exactly right. You should never give out your son's personal info to anyone without his consent. And she did abandon him. She doesn't get to waltz back in to try and play happy family now, unless your son wants that. It's okay to give a child up for adoption, but you don't get to turn around and say they stole your child from you, and get your flying monkeys to attack them. Your family sounds like a toxic mess. I would block them all. Next time someone comments, OP should bring out the how dare yous. How dare you try to intercede on behalf of the woman who abandoned her child? How dare you criticize that child for not wanting to pretend sister is his mother? How dare sister claim to be the child's mother? Keep going with both barrels until the other person shrunk to about the size of a penny. Where was she when he needed his diaper changed? Took his first steps. First day of school, admitted to his first crush, had his first heartbreak, moved out of the home and out into the world. All those birthdays, how many did she actually say happy birthday for? Holidays, the good times and the bad? Being a mother isn't just a section on a birth certificate. It's the experience of raising someone through thick and thin. Not the a-hole. She doesn't get to play the mom card when she abandoned him. I'm not going to say that there aren't good reasons sometimes that a parent isn't suited to raise a child, having them too young, having drug issues, etc. But if that happens, they have to earn their way back into the child's life. She should be down on the floor begging you and her son to join his life. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not making my daughter give up her room to my stepdaughter and grandchild? I, 37 male, have been married to my wife, Sadie, 37, for 4 years. I have a daughter, Chloe, of my own from my previous marriage, age 9. Sadie has a daughter, Ace, 19, from an ex. Ace hasn't really been in our lives often, as she lived with her grandparents her whole life because the state took her from Sadie when Ace was 7. We still saw her on holidays and try to reach out. Ace was living out of state with her boyfriend, but he was recently arrested. So she asked if she and her baby could move in with us, as she needed help getting back on her feet. My wife and I spoke about it and agreed. When I brought up the extra bedroom in the attic, which is an area in the attic we made into a spare room for guests many years ago and no one uses the attic anyways, my wife became upset, gasped even, and said she was not making her daughter with a 5-month-old baby sleep in a dirty attic. I said obviously we would clean and prepare it, and where else did she suggest she sleep? Which is when she told me Chloe's bedroom would be perfect. Chloe's bedroom is very large and across the hall from the bathroom, which Sadie said was perfect. I told her Chloe would not be giving up her bedroom she'd been living in since before I even met her. She got upset and started to plead and said that this could make up for the year's loss and proved she really loved her and that she was wanted. I basically told her no, she could prove that another way, that we wouldn't give up the bedroom. She got angry and said a 9-year-old does not need all that space, and I was picking favorites and not even thinking of the bigger picture. Ace would need more room. It'd be hard for her to go up and down the stairs with a baby, etc. I stuck to my answer and my wife slammed the door and went for a drive. Today she tried convincing me again and I wouldn't give in, and we got into another argument. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole at all. You most definitely should not displace your daughter from her bedroom to make room for Ace. Having a 19-year-old stranger and her baby move in is going to be more than enough of a change for your daughter. Your wife can find some other way to make up for the years of loss without kicking your daughter out of her bedroom. Sadie has already proven that Ace is wanted by taking in her and her baby. As for the stairs, women safely carry babies/children up and down stairs every day. Info: do you know why Ace was removed from Sadie's care? She was deemed unfit. She had drug and alcohol problems. And you, a person with a young daughter, thought it was a good idea to marry someone who not only had their own child taken away, but never earned that child back? She clearly doesn't care about her stepdaughter, ready to throw her out of the only bedroom she's known. She's not a good mom to anyone. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your wife is trying to make it up to her daughter by penalizing yours. The fact that a dirty attic isn't good enough for her child but is good enough for yours is atrocious. I'm going to be mean here. Sadie was a young mother, but Sadie had a state take her child when she was in her mid-20s. I know there is a lot of stories of unfairness, but they do not take a child away from their adult parent for no reason. At best, she's been an absent mother. I know she's tried to reach out, but she doesn't have a parental relationship with Ace. Staying strong here is important, not just because it's not fair, but because Sadie has already destroyed one parent-child relationship. Now she's going to destroy 2 more, hers and yours with Chloe, to try and salvage the ruined one. Ace is now also a young mother. She needs support, the support that I'm guessing Sadie didn't get. Ace has had a tough draw growing up, but she's also made some poor decisions, and it's great that the 2 of you are going to support her. But she gets the support that is available. I'm not blaming her for any of this. This is all on Sadie. Chloe's room is not an available resource. You'll spend money and time and effort helping her. Chloe's going to go through a massive upheaval, bringing 2 new humans into her home, both strangers, one an infant. Having some stability and privacy is key. She needs that room, possibly more than Ace does. You need to find out what Sadie's promising Ace. You need to find out what Ace thinks she's in for. And you need to make it clear to Sadie that Chloe's just as important as you and Sadie in house decisions, because it's her home too. Ace will be with you temporarily, as long as she really is just getting back on her feet. She isn't the guest, but she's not a decision maker either. Sadie needs help dealing with whatever's going on in her head. Whether it's guilt, whether it's thinking that her family is more important than yours, whether it's thinking that having a baby means you're entitled to preferential treatment, whether she's trying to cope with her own past by giving Ace what she didn't get herself. But Sadie needs to deal with what is available before she destroys another family. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she's too old to act like a teenager? My 17 male oldest sister is 37 female. Despite being almost 40, she often acts like she's still a teenager. Lives with our parents, is unemployed, and has been living off their money since she dropped out of college after 1 semester. Spends her time hooking up with guys on Tindr and crying to me about being ghosted or led on, and getting drunk and coming home hangover. She even used a lot of TikTok lingo people my age use, like girl's girl. Altogether, it's a bit cringe. Pathetic? I realize that life happens at different paces for different people, but to me, being almost 40, never having worked a day in your life, and mooching off your parents for almost 20 years, and chasing after and crying about boys like you're a teenager, is just sad. Quite a few people by that age are settled and stable on their lives. And sure, life happens, but not even trying is just odd to me. The other day, she was telling me about how one of her friends wasn't a girl's girl because she slept with a guy my sister had an eye on and she feels depressed. This annoyed me, so I told her, "You're not 18. You haven't been 18 for almost 20 years. You're a grown woman at an age a lot of people have families and careers. Crying about a hookup, it's sad, and you're too old to be acting this way. She got angry and called me a judgmental a-hole. I do judge her, but I think it's a valid judgment. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Info. 17 male, 37 female, lives with our parents, is unemployed and has been living off their money since she dropped out of college after one semester. Does a little quick math. Are you sure that she's actually your sister? I doubt it's you were raising your mother as your sister's situation, if that's what you're indicating. The timeline wouldn't match up unless I'm actually 2 years older than I think I am. Plus, we have other siblings closer in age to her that I don't think would keep that secret from me. How so? I'm a 37-year-old male with a 17-year-old son. It's not impossible to be 37 and have a 17-year-old. I think he's saying that she dropped out at 18 and not 20, meaning the timing of everything together doesn't match what he's been told. It's physically possible that 37-year-old could have a 17-year-old child if they had said child at 20, but if she dropped out of college at 18, then this wouldn't be the reason. Or OP doesn't know the true details. Not the a-hole. Unless she has some sort of disability, this is ridiculous. She does not, as far as I know. Perfectly able-bodied and actually quite smart. Just childish. Not the a-hole. Someone needs to tell her, especially if she is not disabled. Why are your parents allowing this? It's really an extreme age to be still at home and not working to help out at least. They had her very young and were too poor to spoil her when she was little, so they're probably making up for it now. If very young and poor, who knows what kind of trauma your sister endured as a result. Early childhood trauma is the leading cause of borderline personality disorder, and this post kinda screams it. Possibly, but she's an adult. She's had time to deal with her trauma if she has it. Instead, choosing to mooch off our parents in a way that f***s me over is up. Next story. Am I the a-hole for paying $21K to send my kid to private school behind my ex-wife's back? Our son is 8 and has an incredible curiosity about the world. His first and second grade teachers gave nothing but glowing praise in regards to both his intellectual growth and his demeanor. However, his third year has not gone well. His teacher has sent us several emails stating that our son does not pay attention in class and is cold towards his classmates. When his mother and I ask him how school is going, he tells us he hates it. He said, all the teacher does is yell at the class to stop talking, that the kids keep talking and we never do anything, and I hate being there. I can see the light fading from his eyes every day, and every Sunday night mid-September on he cries because he doesn't want to go to school. My son lives with his mother and spends weekends with me. We all live in the same town, and I would describe the relationship between his mother and I as cooperative, but bad feelings persist. I asked my son a few weeks ago if he wanted to change schools, and he responded, God, yes. I asked his mother if she would have any issue with me sending him to a highly regarded private school about 17 miles from our town, and she reacted in a way that was not expected. She said I was being ridiculous, and that it would be an undue burden to her to take him to a different school, which is fair, and it would be unfair to her other children if only one of her kids got to go to private school. I added that I would take him and drop him off every day and pay for it 100%, and she still said no. I told her I don't want our son to waste his potential, nor do I want to fail him as a father. In essence, she responded that our son is just being a brat because he's bored. I registered him at the school and paid a tuition. He starts in August. I told him what I had done, and he was elated. Naturally, upon hearing this news, his mother was apoplectic. All I said was, fine, you tell him he isn't going because you think he's a brat. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Info. Her other kids are not yours, right? Correct. Then not the a-hole. She's not a good mom if she's willing to hurt your son just in the name of fairness. Half siblings whose non-shared parents have different means get treated differently. That's just how life works. Besides, if your wife is currently with her other kid's father, then it's also not fair that your son has divorced parents while his siblings don't. Courts may not look favorably on you enrolling him without his mom's permission. I'm not sure, but I do think you might want to try for more custody. It really wouldn't surprise me if your son starts getting treated as the black sheep in that household, especially as time goes on and the siblings get older. Fair does not mean equal. I'm a teacher. The goal is that each child gets what they need. They don't all need the same thing. Kids don't get that, but their parents should. Last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my sister-in-law after she lost my son while babysitting? Over the past 3 months, my husband's sister has been staying with us until she got back on her feet. As part of her contribution to our household, she generously offered to babysit our kids, including our 3-year-old son with autism and with both delayed speech and language, without expecting any compensation. However, about 3 weeks ago while she was babysitting, our son managed to slip out of the front door without her awareness, wandering around for approximately half an hour before a concerned individual alerted the police. Rather than immediately notifying my husband and I about the situation, she spent an hour searching the neighborhood before involving law enforcement. We only became aware of our son's disappearance after she had already found out that the police had picked him up and safely returned him home. There's uncertainty regarding whether she would have informed us if the police had not explicitly instructed her to do so. In the aftermath, I asked her to leave our home. My husband believes that my decision to kick her out was overly severe, labeling it as an honest mistake that could happen to anyone. He also emphasizes her lack of alternative living arrangements, arguing that it was unjust to leave her without nowhere else to go. She put my son's safety at risk and broke my trust, and I can't get over that. But I can't shake what my husband said. Now I feel terrible about putting her on the street. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. An honest mistake initially, yes. Kids can be slippery little devils. The big mistake was not calling you. Spinning her wheels searching for an hour, then hearing the police thankfully had him. And when she was going to call you? Has she even apologized? Doesn't sound like it. She's staying with you to get back on her feet. So she's an adult. This isn't some 19-year-old being an idiot. She should have known better. And since she doesn't know, she cannot be relied upon and deserves banishment. Right. After 10 minutes of not being able to find him, I have a kid. They're definitely slippery. She should have called the parents. 15 minutes is all it took for my nephew to open the door stripped naked and get halfway down the block. Yes, he got naked outside. They added a chain after that since he had to undo 2 locks to get outside. Your son could have died. Also, many states make parents who lose their children take parenting classes and have strikes against that can cause them to lose their children. This is a serious issue, and she should not be trusted with her child. OP not the a-hole. I would 1000% kick her out. Hard times or not. Your son could have been seriously injured or worse. Your husband is not taking it seriously enough. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister with her child custody case? My 37 female sister, 30 female, is in the process of divorcing her husband of 3 years. The divorce has taken a messy turn, and they're battling for custody of their toddler. My sister and I haven't spoken in nearly 6 years because she accused me of using her identity to get an apartment when I was in active alcoholism. I'm now in long-term sobriety, but at the time I told her I didn't do it, and she refused to believe me. She tried to have me arrested, but the apartment complex's video surveillance showed it was actually someone she didn't know who had stolen her identity from a place she used to work. She never apologized to me for accusing me of this, and she had told everyone and anyone who would listen that I had done it. However, when she realized it wasn't me, she still didn't backtrack or tell anyone otherwise. Fast forward to now. I'm sober for a few years, and my partner's sister is one of the top-rated family law lawyers in our area. The lawyer my sister currently has is terrible, and she lost custody of her daughter today. My mother called and said my sister called my sister-in-law, but she won't take her case because she doesn't feel comfortable knowing how it would make me feel, or not knowing. My mom wanted me to call sister-in-law and tell her that my sister needs help and to please take her case. I told her no, and that is not my responsibility to help her. I have never met my niece because my sister refuses to be around me even still. She got mad and said I'm an a-hole because I should be willing to help despite our past. For me, it feels like it's not a past at all, and still very much the present. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. May I make a suggestion? Call your sister-in-law and tell her that you appreciate the way she handled your sister. Let sister-in-law know that you'd prefer her not to take the case. And if anyone in your family calls her and tells her otherwise, they're lying. I will tomorrow. My sister-in-law has been such a wonderful support. I'm so thankful for her friendship and sisterhood. You're correct that I should contact her tomorrow. Not the a-hole, but info. What did she do to lose custody? She was caught with a DWI last month. Ex-husband called for emergency temporary custody and got it. Today they went to court and full custody was granted to the father. Not the a-hole. Congrats on your sobriety. Your sister has severed her relationship with you. It has been years. Why would you put in a good word for her? Your sister is still actively shunning you. You haven't met her kid. Your mother is wrong. Also, your sister-in-law is not the only good family law lawyers around. Why pick your sister-in-law? If she lost custody and your sister-in-law was her attorney, somehow it would be your fault. I'm assuming that your sister uses her married name. Your sister-in-law wouldn't have known she was her sister. Did your sister try to use your connection with your sister-in-law to get a discount or some other favor? I think your sister-in-law sounds great. I also think that she dodged a bullet and your sister would be a horrible client. My mom said she did call and tell sister-in-law who she was, that she was my sister. That's how sister-in-law knew because I have confided in her my past. She knows everything I've done, good and bad, and knows that I didn't do that bad thing I was accused of. My sister-in-law's a gem, and you're very right. Thank you kindly. Edit. Thank you all very much. I still question myself and my intentions a lot, since I got sober and started making changes to be a better person. It helped to hear everyone say the things I was thinking. I appreciate all the feedback very much. Much love. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not punishing my brother for cheating on his wife? My brother Jake has been with his wife Kate since high school, now separated. They have 2 kids that are both my godkids, and me and him are basically best friends. Our sister Claire has been friends with Kate since middle school. We're each other's maid of honors and still very close. In the last 6 months, Jake confided in me that he fell for his coworker and let things slip into physical affair. I encouraged him to tell Kate and be honest about it so to not live a lie. He told her. She was originally in denial and wanted to work through things, but Jake said he'd be lying to himself, and they are now in the midst of divorce proceedings. He and a coworker are now in a relationship. When I met her, I'll admit it was weird seeing him with someone else. They weirdly seemed like the most compatible couple I've ever met. They have way more in common than he ever did with Kate. They look at each other with such admiration. And despite how it started, I honestly think they could be together forever. I know I could be wrong there, but that's my hunch. So Jake and I are still really tight. We recently took our kids to a festival together this weekend. Just me and my kids and him and his. No partners. We had a great time, and he was telling me how happy he's been, and the kids seem to be adjusting to it much better than expected. I know it's all a process, but I'm glad he's doing well, and I'm glad to have him in my life. Well, our sister Claire is mad that I'm still hanging out with Jake. She's saying how she can't believe I have the audacity to approve of him being with a mistress, and that I should be trying to convince him to try to work things out with Kate, who is apparently still hoping for that. Or I should be no contact with him until he realizes how wrong he is and makes things up to her. Am I the a-hole for staying tight with him, helping him a little financially till the divorce/child support situation is figured out, and supporting his new relationship that seems to make him happy? I feel bad for Kate and all, but I just feel like they're a case of people who got married too young, and now he found someone who's a better fit for him. Edit. Regarding the child support. Kate makes about double him, and her job involves a ton of travel to where she's gone about 75% of the time. Has been a primary caretaker of the kids most of their lives. She doesn't want a new job post-divorce, so he will continue to have primary custody. Of course, that means the other parent who makes more will pay child support. It's for the kids. He's not pursuing alimony for himself. Your brother was selfish and blew up his family the worst way possible. That's going to have repercussions and fractures. You don't need to punish him, but it is kind of gross he's riding off into the sunset with his new side chick, while his ex is deeply mourning. Don't condone it, but it is not your job to punish him. Going not the a-hole, but with some strong ick. I think the gross thing is trying to manipulate the brother back into a loveless marriage. The end game isn't just to get him to break up with a mistress, but to take back his ex-wife. Why? Because it's convenient for her? He doesn't love her, and familial shaming won't fix that. He's not an a-hole for leaving, he's just an a-hole for not having the balls to do it sooner and cheating. But they weirdly seemed like the most compatible couple I've ever met. They have way more in common than he ever did with Kate. They look at each other with such admiration. And despite how it started, I honestly think they could be together forever. I know I could be wrong there, but that's my hunch. Almost every relationship starts out this way. It's a young relationship, and they're still in the honeymoon phase when things are new and exciting. You didn't mention any major issues your brother had with his ex, and that left her solely because he wanted to get some action. That is so unbelievably selfish, especially since he has 2 kids. In a couple months or years when that initial flame burns out, your brother will probably look back with regret for destroying his family for short-term gratification. OP's comments make it even worse. His brother blames his ex, the breadwinner, by a far margin, for the fact that he cheated, since she was working all the time, but now he's going after her for financial support. So she's off working and making most of the money needed to support the family. He starts an affair, cheats on her for a while, finally ditches her to run off with a mistress. blames her, and now he wants to use the money she was making to build a comfortable life for him and a side chick. If she's working all the time, does that mean that he dropped his kids off somewhere so that he can bang his mistress? Anybody who is able to do that is a terrible person, and I see why the sister thinks so poorly of OP as well. The kids apparently spent a lot of time over at OP's house. OP mentions this in a reply. So not just somewhere, he was probably dropping them off with OP, who if so, wasn't just keeping quiet about the cheating, but actively enabling it. Next story. Am I the a-hole because I want to separate our funds if my husband continues to let his 22-year-old daughter live at home rent-free without doing anything or starting a life? I, Sarah, 38 female, and my husband, Josh, 40 male, have been together for almost 15 years. Josh has a daughter, Lori, who is almost 23. I've been in her life since she was 5. Lori came to live with us when she was 16 and ended up staying with us until graduation. I actually enjoyed having her around. It made house feel more complete. However, Lori has always had a mean streak, which I've kind of brushed off thinking it's just some teenage angst. Lori's mother is manic depressive, and there's a concern that Lori might carry this as well. But nobody really wants to discuss it openly. Lori doesn't talk to anyone in the house, preferring to spend her days in a room playing video games until it's time for work. When she does emerge, there's this palpable tension and she often appears annoyed. We get one-word answers and feel like we're walking on eggshells. She does have a part-time job that she seems to like, but she has admitted it's not a long-term career goal. As her stepmom, I've never set rules or imposed consequences. My husband wanted to handle his daughter's issues himself. The only thing I requested is that she helps with the dishes on the days she doesn't have a car, as I have to drive her to work and pick her up. She never pays for gas, and when I ask her to do the dishes, she just leaves them. If she makes coffee, it's enough for 4 people, but she never replaces what she uses. My husband usually ended up doing the dishes to avoid any confrontation. He doesn't want to enforce rules on her either, saying she's an adult and he can't make her do anything. This has been going on for 4 years, and it's causing tension in our marriage. So I asked my husband if we could start separating our finances. I suggested that if he wanted to continue taking care of Lori, then I would give him the money needed for bills and keep the rest for myself. This didn't go over well, and we're currently not speaking. I'm even considering staying with my cousin until we can resolve this, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen soon. Am I the a-hole here for wanting to separate our finances because of this situation with Lori? Any advice or insights would be appreciated. Thanks. Edit. Lori has had her own car since February of this year and is paying for her own gas. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. My partner is 24 years old with bipolar and is a teacher. Bipolar doesn't make you an a-hole or lazy. It's time for her to grow up, get some help, and start paying her own bills. You should definitely stop giving her rides to work and make her figure out her own day-to-day matters. She's an adult according to your husband. Time to act like one. This. Tell your husband that according to him, she's an adult, and therefore it's not your responsibility to support her financially. He's cuddling her, and that's his choice. But you and your money don't have to be a part of that. The most important part of being an adult is telling the people you live with that they can't make you do dishes. Or them understanding that doing the dishes and paying for groceries is a prerequisite for her to keep living under their roof. Not the a-hole. It's time for Lori to get a wake-up call and realize that not everyone is going to support her financially forever. It sounds like she needs more responsibilities. Could you work out something where she pays her part of the phone bill or at least pays for gas? She's clearly making money, so some of that should be going towards you guys for supporting her other financial needs. I had to do this, and it honestly helps me get prepared for the big world. 100%. Lori's disrespecting OP in her home and her father is enabling it. Why does she need to financially support her on top of that? She's an adult and can take responsibility for her actions. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband he's an idiot and threatening to divorce him for co-signing on a $1 million home that isn't ours? My husband, 38 male, and I, 39 female, have been happily married for a little over 2 years. We own a home and do quite well for ourselves financially. He generally maintains the finances for our family. My husband's mother and sister live a few hours away, and I have always felt they were very abusive towards him. They speak down to him, disrespect him, and essentially make him feel as if it's his responsibility to clean up their financial mishaps and their poor choices. Now to the AITA part. My husband's sister and mother have been renting a home from another family member well under market value, at least $3,000 less than what it would rent for now. The owner of family member has decided to sell the home. Mind you, it has been trashed and not maintained by the sister and mother. They have little to no respect for the fact that they have had it so good for so long. The owner gave them 90 days to vacate the premises. Immediately, the sister and mother began asking my husband to help them buy a home. They live and work in one of the most expensive housing markets in the US. Additionally, they do not qualify for the type and amount of loan they would need to even buy a modest home in the area. Lower credit score, no major assets, etc., and they refuse to move to a more affordable area. After a lot of back and forth, they finally asked my husband to co-sign on a very basic older home that costs $1 million. My immediate reaction was to tell them absolutely not, and I voiced my concerns to my husband. He is usually very level-headed and financially savvy, but I had to be the one to push him and his family for some sort of plan of how this would all work. To go from paying $1,000 a month in rent to well over $6,000 a month on a mortgage, not even including bills, seems questionable at best, and a terrible decision at worst. I asked my husband why they can't move into a modest apartment and make a plan to buy in a year or two, but he didn't really have an answer, but agreed that they absolutely need a plan in order for him to engage. Again, after several weeks of back and forth with his family, they had yet provide any solid plan on how they would pay the mortgage, bills, and avoid default. Who would be responsible for repairs? No idea. Finally, last week before I left for a work trip, my husband told me he would not be co-signing on the home and that they had done zero planning. I was so relieved and was able to relax on my trip. Well, I returned home at the end of the week and was taking a shower when he walks in and tells me he co-signed for the home. To say I was taken aback is an understatement. I went through all the range of emotions in a short amount of time, but it wasn't until the next morning that what he had done had really hit me. He chose to make a risky investment with people who don't respect him, and did it behind my back after assuring me he wouldn't. He kept trying to tell me I was safe from any potential impact, but I don't understand how that could be. I asked him to walk me through the conversation, the plans, and any assurance that our own assets were safe. He couldn't. He then had the audacity to tell me, "At least I decided to tell you." That is when I lost it. I felt absolutely betrayed and disrespected. I cried and screamed and told him how he cannot see how they use him. I told him I was questioning his integrity and our relationship. We are also in the midst of the IVF process, and it has been extremely hard on me and my body. I told him I didn't think he deserved to be the father of my children, and if we did have children, his family would have limited contact and not allowed around my children. There are other incidents of how they have treated me with such disrespect that even I have distanced myself from them. That is also another reason why my husband decided for us to move away from them. Back to the subject. At first he was remorseful, but then he got defensive of his family. Even though myself and many others have tried to show him how abusive they are. I told him if he wanted any chance of making our relationship right, he was to immediately work with his mother and sister to write a contract that he had majority ownership in the home, so that if they continued to make poor decisions and default, he could sell the house. Well, to no one's surprise, his family would not agree to these terms, because they believe living there is enough to solidify it's theirs. For the last 3 days, I've asked over and over again why he made this drastic decision without a plan. My friends agree that this is a divorce-worthy offense, but the reality is besides this, we have a wonderful life together and I love him dearly. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for calling my husband stupid and threatening divorce over co-signing the loan? Some additional details for anyone interested. His sister is actually older than him. He has managed to keep his financial success fairly well hidden from his family, but due to the co-sign process, they now know exactly what assets he has, and I'm certain they will expect more from him. Before asking my husband to co-sign, they didn't even attempt to take out the loan for the home on their own. I assume they expect that having him on the loan will give them carte blanche on destroying the home, or default on the loan because he will pay in order not to mess up his own credit and assets. His family does not care for me and are likely jealous at the life I have with my husband and how they get less from him. Though my husband maintains the finances, we bring in roughly the same income, so this is not a case of my husband having full control over financial choices. Not the a-hole. He has shown you to be irresponsible. What happens if you have a college fund for your kids and his family feels entitled? Please do not have a kid with him. Unless he could somehow get out of this mess and go no contact with them, I would definitely divorce him. Even then, I don't see how we would rebuild trust. I would have to go through every single account monthly, and I don't know if it's worth it. The blatant lie and then doing it behind her back, how on earth do you get past that? If they divorce now, then this stays with him. He just lost their retirement/college fund, just gave it away, and will most likely keep on doing it. It's $1 million with zero equity for him. OP, I'm so sorry you had trouble conceiving, but I'm glad you are not tied by a kid to this mess. Not the a-hole. Yeah, even if she loves him, divorce him and separate all finances completely, so she's off the hook for the debt when they screw her husband over. Am I the a-hole for naming my baby after my biological father? My 30 female mom and bio dad were addicted to drugs when she got pregnant. She got sober and my bio dad tried but struggled, but they decided before I was born that it would be best if he weren't around, at least until he cleaned up his act. When I was 6 months old, my mom met the man she'd later marry and would also adopt me. He's really the only father figure I've ever known. They never hid I was adopted, but my adoptive father has treated me the same as my younger siblings. When I was 13, I got into contact with my bio dad. He reached out as I had no way to contact him. He was finally sober. My parents allowed us to develop a relationship. We grew very close, and while I didn't call him dad, I love him very much. Sadly, a year later, he relapsed and overdosed. It devastated me, not just to lose him, but also what we could have had if he had remained sober. I eventually got into therapy to help with everything. Now, I'm married and expecting my first child. My parents have been amazing and supportive. My dad walked me down the aisle at my wedding, and they are so excited to be grandparents. My husband and I recently found out we're having a boy, and we've decided to name him after my biological father to honor his memory. He wasn't a bad guy, he was just mentally ill, had PTSD, and struggled a lot in life. He loved me enough to know I deserved better and let my dad adopt me. I had an amazing life because he was selfless and self-aware enough. So, I told my parents and they did not take it well. My dad was quiet and just obviously sad. My mom asked how I could name my child after the man who abandoned me. She said I don't have to name my child after my adoptive father, but she's going to struggle with calling her grandchild by the name of the man who couldn't clean up his act and then traumatized her daughter. I found him when he overdosed. She and my dad left shortly later. Now my mom isn't speaking to me, and my dad said it's ultimately my choice and I'll respect it, but it does hurt. This name does not work as a middle name, and my dad didn't have a middle name. I feel so conflicted. I don't want to dredge up bad memories for my mom or make my dad uncomfortable, but my bio dad means a great deal to me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. No a-holes here. You can name your child what you want, but your mom's not an a-hole for being upset by your choice. We should also consider the kid to be here. There are almost infinite names out there. I don't know why you'd name your kid something that will create distance between that kid and their grandparents, or why you'd saddle your child with a legacy of an addict who abandoned their kid and then died early. Meh, selfishness has its limits. You're the a-hole, OB. I feel so conflicted. I don't want to dredge up bad memories for my mom or make my dad uncomfortable, but my bio dad means a great deal to me. Am I the a-hole? Unless you're prepared to lose your relationship with your mom and your entire family who you claim to care about, you better rein in your impulsiveness and think about the bigger picture. If your bio dad was just your run-of-the-mill deadbeat, this could be excused, but he caused so much pain and left bad memories to the people around you that I struggle to see how you can think this would be a good idea. And you've only known this guy for a year. The version you saw was only a fraction of what he truly was as a person. I doubt the fantasy version of your bio dad you cooked up in your head even existed. Edit. My husband and I recently found out we're having a boy. We've decided to name him after my biological father to honor his memory. Are you sure it was a we decision? Or you could give your baby a totally different name, so he isn't burdened by your bio father's memory. I was looking for this comment. Many reasons that Opie wants to use this name, but one of them she seems to forget is this child will grow up eventually knowing it's named after a drug addict who abandoned his child. Talk about an issue that will need therapy when the kid is older. My cousin named his son after his brother who died of a heroin overdose. My cousin who died was named after our great-grandpa who died young and had a difficult life. Great-grandpa was apparently also named after a grandpa who died young. Needless to say, cousin's son doesn't understand why he was given the name to honor his uncle who died young of an overdose, when everyone with that name also died young, and he assumes he's going to die young too, because that's the legacy he was given. I get wanting to honor your bio dad, but maybe find another way. Next story. Am I the a-hole for allowing daughter to exclude family? My daughter's 5th birthday is coming up and we are having a party with family. My husband and I agreed to let my daughter choose who she wants to invite. She chose to invite everyone in my family and my husband's family, except for my husband's mom and stepfather. A bit of backstory is that my mother-in-law and father-in-law live out of state and have taken absolutely no interest in my daughter's life. They haven't even seen her in 3 years. During the past 3 years, my husband and I have tried to get them to FaceTime my daughter, but to no avail. My mother-in-law recently, as in the last few weeks, started calling her once a week or so, but it took so many attempts to even get to that point. My mother-in-law and father-in-law are both retired, so the lack of effort is certainly not due to a lack of time. They are also financially well off and have taken many trips in the last few years, just not to see us. Well, my mother-in-law and father-in-law invited themselves out here during the days of my daughter's birthday and birthday party, so when they found out my daughter doesn't want them here, they were very offended. My mother-in-law is complaining to the rest of my husband's family about how hurt she is. But I'm of the mindset that she has made no effort with my daughter, so why should my daughter have to include her in her birthday? But my husband is starting to feel guilty, and the rest of his family saying how hurt his mom is. So am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. Are you really blaming this on the whims of a 5-year-old? What if she randomly decided that she didn't want anyone from your side of the family there? Why would you even tell them they weren't wanted by your 5-year-old? Why create that tension when you claim that you want them to have a relationship? You want them to be salty at a 5-year-old? To me, it sounds retaliatory. You were all too happy to let them know they were being rejected because you felt rejected. Are we really all cuddling a grown adult who can't be bothered to develop a relationship with a grandchild and then wants a freaking pity party because they're not special enough to be thought of by said grandchild? LOL. I really love Reddit. This makes me think of all those parents who force their kids to hug/kiss family members, even when the kid says no. Trample all over those boundaries early, I guess. Info. I'm pretty suspicious here. Your daughter is 5. I'm skeptical you didn't lead her towards this decision in any way. Did she make a list of people she wanted to invite and didn't mention them? Did you ask and she said no? Yes, I'd also like to know what the daughter says is her reasoning for not inviting them. If a kid says they don't want to be around someone, that should be respected. Does she have other reasons for being uncomfortable besides never seeing this person before? She's 5. 5-year-olds don't need good reason to do something. I assure you, her grandparents have not been sneaking in from out of state to traumatize her behind her parents' backs for years. And no, a 5-year-old's desire to not do something shouldn't be unilaterally respected. There's a reason they're not allowed to make life decisions for themselves. Should a 5-year-old also be allowed to refuse to eat vegetables or take vitamins? What if they don't want a shot? Unlike everybody else, not a-hole. They haven't made any effort, and I believe that 5 is old enough to realize if someone doesn't pay any attention to you. All young children notice if someone ignores them. If she truly said she doesn't want them there, then that's fine. That's her choice, and as long as you didn't coach her, not a-hole. Even if not seeing her in person was due to the pandemic, wouldn't you do anything possible to see your grandchild, like for example, FaceTiming, which she has only started to do recently? Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving equal payment to my in-laws versus my parents? It should really state are we the a-holes because this absolutely was a decision my husband and I made together and both felt was fair and generous. I recently won a large sum of money. It's not life-changing, quit your job and never work again type of amount, but it's significantly more money than I've ever had in my account before. My husband and I talked at great lengths about sharing the money, what it would look like, and alternatives such as paying for a family vacation. And we decided to gift each household of our immediate family $20,000 each. So my mother-in-law/father-in-law received $20,000. Both of my sister-in-laws, one married and one single, my brother and his family, my mother and my father and stepmother all received equal amounts regardless of whether they were married or single, kids or no kids. One of my sister-in-laws has mentioned that my mother-in-law is complaining that they should have received $40,000 to make it fair, since my parents are divorced and they each got $20,000. Since I only have one sibling, we thought it worked out nice and evenly since each side of the family is getting $60,000 total between each of the 3 households. My husband is embarrassed and annoyed that his mom isn't being more grateful. And while it wouldn't break us financially to give them the extra, it feels unfair to my parents to get less just because they aren't married anymore. Now for the comments. Is it too late to give her nothing? Not the a-hole. Tell her to want in one hand and crap in the other, and see which fails faster. Tell her she could keep what she got, or she could get it taken away and not have any. You are clearly not the a-holes. The entitlement of people is truly baffling. Sorry, are you one of my parents? Because that phrase wasn't exactly common in our household, but came up from time to time. You have one sibling to give $20,000 to. He has two. As stated, each side of your family, yours and his, received $60,000. Not the a-hole. And your mother-in-law sounds ungrateful. Also, your sister-in-law should have never mentioned she'd said that. It was probably a private mother/daughter convo that wasn't meant to go any further. That's a good point. I never thought maybe it was a private venting that shouldn't have made its way to us. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law are notorious for sharing each other's venting to my husband, and then he starts bending over backwards to solve it. But nobody ever tells him anything directly. I always tell him unless the person has said something to him. His mom and sister are both grown women who can express their own feelings instead of having the other run interference. His life is much happier now that he doesn't jump as soon as one tells him the other isn't happy about something. Lol. They're lucky to get anything. I won the lottery, and each member of my family got a $50 Starbucks card. Haha, I'm starting to think that would have been a smarter idea. OP, you need to read a Reddit post about what to do when winning the lotto. It's such a good idea. I sold something I created for big money I was not expecting, and told no one. I followed the advice given on that post, and I'm happy to say I blew all the money on coke and hoops, and no one asked me for a dime. I would not give them a penny moving forward and limit contact. Not the a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not giving back a bike my cousin gave me for free because he thought it was trash? About a month ago, I got a free bike off my cousin, an old red beach cruiser of unknown make. I needed a bike because my last one was stolen, and I'm too broke to buy a new one. My cousin then told me he had an old beat-up bike in his parents' backyard, and I could have it if I wanted it. When I picked it up, it looked a mess. Covered in mud, rusty chain, nicked paint, dry cracking on the white sidewalls of the tires. There was even moss on it, but I took it anyway and thanked them. I got it home, cleaned it up, touched up the paint with nail polish, lubed the chain with WD-40, put new $7 grips on it, tightened the rear gear, cleaned most of the rust off any chrome, put on an aluminum kickstand that a bike shop tossed out as garbage, and it became my daily rider. The tubes and tires are still good, and I got it back on the road for less than $10. And honestly, I like it. Ride's a little bouncy, but a coaster brake is fun and it's simple and reliable. The problem is my cousin saw me riding it last week, and at first didn't recognize it as the same bike. It was so covered in mud previously that he thought it was rusted over. And now he says that I scammed him and that he wants $60 for the bike, or give it back so he could sell it. I refused and said he didn't want it in the first place, and I like riding it. Now he's calling me a jerk and telling his friends and family I've robbed him. The family are all on my side, including his parents, while his friends think I'm a jerk. But I'm the one who put the work into fixing his bike he gave me free as trash. And I'm the one who actually uses it, unlike my cousin. So I'm here of an unbiased opinion. Am I the a-hole for not giving the bike back or not giving money for it? Edit. Yes, I know WD-40 wasn't a permanent solution for the bike chain, and I will get a proper lube for it later. I only use it for the moment because I already had it on hand, and it loosens rust well, because it's made for that. I needed the chain working right away as I was already using the bike to go to work a day later. WD-40 is a stated penetrating lubricant, among other things. It's just not a steady lubricant because it dries out. The chain is working fine for the moment, and I'll get the right kind of grease/lube soon. Not the a-hole. If he wants the bike back, he should be willing to pay you money for the grips, WD-40, kickstand, and labor. I already had a WD-40, and the kickstand was free. The only things I had money into was the grips and dollar store nail polish. But it was still a day's labor to get it roadworthy again. Call a bike shop and ask what their hourly rate is for repairing a bike. Tell your cousin he can have the bike back, minus the cost of repair material plus the labor you spent on it. I guarantee that it will be more than $60, and probably more than he could sell the bike for. He doesn't get to profit off your labor for free. I know what the local bike shop's hourly rate is $25 an hour, plus the cost of the parts. Obviously not the a-hole. Your cousin is being ridiculous. He gave you a bike that apparently he thought was completely useless and perhaps not even usable. And now that you fixed it up, he thinks you scammed him? What a joke. His friends are on his side because they are his friends, and because he likely didn't explain the situation fully or correctly to them. Don't worry about what they think. Exactly. The cousin is trying to scam and take advantage of OP. The cousin saw the bike as trash that got taken off of his hands. He didn't have to take the time or the energy required to discard it. Now that OP has taken the time to repair the bike and proven that it still works, the cousin wants to swindle OP to make a quick buck. And like you said, the scammer cousin probably only told his friends half of the story. What was your cousin expecting? That you were going to ride it still covered in moss and dirt? I was expecting the story to turn into the bike being a special edition that was worth a fortune. Wonder what your cousin has told his friends to make them on his side. As far as I can tell, the bike is nothing special, nor is it vintage. Maybe it is worth $60 in its current condition, because some people seem to want a fair amount for used beach cruiser. But it was basically worthless when I got it.